A major shift inside the Mafia in New England. The power center of the Italian mob has moved from Providence to Boston for the first time in more than a decade.
Our investigative team has the story and undercover video of the new Mafia leadership team meeting right here in Boston this week. It's a remarkable video you're not going to see anywhere else. Fox Undercover's Mike Beaudet is here with his exclusive report. What do you have, Mike?
Maria, organized crime in New England has now been reorganized. After a long reign, the Providence-based boss of the New England Mafia is out, replaced by a veteran gangster here in Boston. We've got the names and the exclusive undercover video. It's Tuesday night at Carmen's Kitchen, a restaurant in East Boston. Inside, at a table in the back, are the men who now run the Mafia for all of New England. There's the new boss, veteran Boston gangster Peter Lamoni. To his right, Bobby DeLuca, up from Providence. He's the new underboss. And here's Anthony D'Annunzio, a Mafia captain and key member of Lamoni's inner circle. The mobsters gathered at Carmen's Kitchen after attending a wake for the mother of another Mafia captain held just around the corner. The meeting is visual evidence of the new order in the New England mob. For the last 5 years, this man was the face of the Mafia in Boston. Carmen the Cheeseman D'Annunzio rose through the ranks to become the underboss, the number 2 man in New England in 2004. The same year he was thrust into the public eye by Fox Undercover. Law enforcement tells us you're running the Mafia in Boston.
I don't even know what they're talking about. You should be working.
D'Annunzio, it turned out, was also under the close eye of law enforcement. First, he was arrested by the state police, charged with illegal gambling and extortion. Then he was indicted by the feds, accused of bribing an undercover agent to win a multi-million-dollar big dig contract. D'Annunzio pleaded guilty to state and federal charges and was shipped off to federal prison last month to serve a 6-year sentence. D'Annunzio is out of business. His shop here in the North End, Fresh Cheese, is now closed, and he's out as the underboss of the New England Mafia. The Cheeseman's departure is just one of the latest developments as the leadership in the local mob undergoes major changes.
There's been a transition period and transitioning to another regime, so to speak.
State Police Lieutenant Steve Johnson is a veteran organized crime investigator. Johnson confirms the center of power in the New England Mafia is moving north, from Rhode Island to Massachusetts. For the last 60 years, except for a brief period in the early 1990s, when Boston area gangster Cadillac Frank Salemi ran the show, the mob in New England has been run out of Providence, Rhode Island, specifically Atwells Avenue in the Federal Hills section of the city. But now the man in charge of the New England mob is here in Boston. Any concerns about inner gang wars going on?
It appears the transition's been very low-key and nonviolent. I think that they realize that the violent efforts that previous bosses or underbosses may have had just draws more attention, law enforcement attention.
The previous boss, Louis Baby Shanks Menacchio of Providence, has reportedly retired after nearly 15 years in charge. Law enforcement sources told us he's been replaced by Peter Lamoni, seen here in September making the rounds in the North End at the wake for Jerry Angiulo, who was the New England underboss in the 70s and 80s. Lamoni's career in the mob dates back decades. He was sent to prison for life for a murder in the 1960s. After spending 33 years locked up, Lamoni was let out in 2001 after long-hidden evidence revealed he and 3 other men were set up to take the fall for the real killers, all with the knowledge of the FBI. 2 years ago, Lamoni and the other men won a record $101 million judgment against the federal government. But in January, Fox Undercover reported that Lamoni had returned to his old ways and quietly replaced his friend Carmen D'Annunzio as Mafia underboss in Boston. Law enforcement tells us you're the underboss, sir. Down in Rhode Island, with Baby Shanks Menacchio stepping aside, Bobby DeLuca, also a veteran New England gangster, is now in charge. In the new mob hierarchy, DeLuca serves as the underboss, reporting directly to Lamoni in Boston. How long the Mafia's reshuffled leadership team will last is unclear. Lamoni, out on bail since December, still has to deal with illegal gaming, extortion, and loan sharking charges. If Lamoni is convicted and goes back to prison, he'd be out of a job, and law enforcement sources say Anthony D'Annunzio would likely take over as boss. According to Lieutenant Johnson, that's an occupational hazard for whoever holds New England's top Mafia job.
Generally you have a very large target on your back and on your chest and internally and externally.
This week's meeting took place in Carmen's kitchen, a restaurant owned, on paper anyway, by Anthony and Carmen D'Annunzio's sister. It's a place law enforcement is sure to be watching, since prosecuting the mafia remains a priority for the state police and the FBI. Jeff Salette is a supervisory special agent with the FBI in Boston.
A group doesn't have to be killing people today for them to be a concern. They killed people last week, they killed people a year ago, they killed people 10 years ago. It's something that we are interested in pursuing because they're still living off of that reputation, and they're still willing to commit those acts of violence if the situation dictates it.
So how big is the mafia in New England? No one has a precise number, but the state police estimate there are as many as 30 made members of La Cosa Nostra in the Boston area and another 20 in Rhode Island, and that doesn't include numerous other mafia associates, men who have not been officially inducted into the mafia but still do the work of organized crime. A last note, a new fresh cheese shop opened recently at another location in the North End, but Carmen D'Annunzio's lawyer says as far as he knows, it's not owned by the imprisoned cheeseman. Mark?
So, Mike, what kind of illegal activities do authorities believe the mob is still involved with today?
Well, we're told mobsters make their living in many of the same ways they always have: illegal gambling, loan sharking, extortion, drug dealing. And investigators say those activities sometimes lead to violence, even murder.
The mafia isn't what it used to be, that's for sure. Do investigators believe the mob is still dangerous today?
Short answer, yes. They're especially concerned about the younger guys, the soldiers as they're called, because investigators say they grew up on The Sopranos and think shooting people is just part of the business.